It's no secret that humanity has lost a few skills over time. Our ancient ancestors knew how to build the pyramids, for example, but we'd struggle to replicate that feat today. The pyramids are just one example of historical monuments or artifacts that leaves archaeologists and scientists stumped for an explanation, though. There are many more, and we're about to take a closer look at some of the most puzzling examples in this video. At first glance, there doesn't appear to be anything special about these sculptures, other than the fact that they look a little weird. They're informally known as eye idols, and they come from a specific area in Syria known as Tel Brak. What makes them odd is that nothing that even vaguely resembles them has ever been found elsewhere in Syria, or even elsewhere in the world. The small statues were found in their hundreds during the excavation of a structure we now refer to as the Eye Temple. The smallest of them are only 4 or 5 centimeters high, whereas the larger ones can be up to a foot tall or long. All of them are made from alabaster, but we have no idea which ancient civilization used that alabaster to create them. Candidates include the Akkadians, Babylonians, and the Sumerians, all of whom once occupied Tel Brak before its abandonment 4,000 years ago. Are the wide, bulging eyes supposed to resemble a creature that's long since become extinct? Are they effigies of an unknown god? Sadly, there's nobody we can ask for answers, and we'll probably never know. While it would be fair to call the Venus of Willendorf sculpture somewhat unflattering, we can all agree that it's an interpretation of the female form. Although why there are no arms and why the head has such an odd face is a matter of much conjecture. That's far from the strangest thing about it, though. Incredibly, seemingly almost impossibly in fact, this Oolitic limestone sculpture is more than 30,000 years old. A civilian named Josef Verman discovered it in the town of Willendorf, Austria in 1908, and was briefly accused of forging it. But testing has confirmed its age. That makes it one of the oldest and most sophisticated works of Stone Age art known to humankind. Some experts believe that women of the era may have carved sculptures like these themselves, with the lack of facial features and disproportionate body sizes attributed to the fact that they didn't own mirrors. Without a reflection, they could only carve according to their own interpretations of their form. That doesn't explain why the statue doesn't have feet or arms, though. Scientific and archaeological opinion about the famous Fuente Magna is divided. Some of them insist that it's a genuine artifact and should be viewed as the American equivalent of the Rosetta Stone, whereas others believe it to be nothing more than a forgery. In form, the Fuente Magna is a ceramic drinking water vessel covered on all sides with carvings and texts not entirely dissimilar to early Sumerian writing. It's claimed that a farmer found the bowl close to Pumapunku, Bolivia in 1950, but spent 10 years using it to serve water to his pigs. It wasn't until 1975 that the first mention of its existence appeared in a newspaper, and at that point, it was considered to be a fake and kept in the storage room of a museum. Dr. Clyde Winters, however, believes that the text on the side of the bowl alternates between Sumerian cuneiform and Semitic, and is similar to the text found on the side of the Potockia monolith. To Winters, this is evidence that the ancient Sumerians somehow made it as far as Peru. Although they won't admit it, the Museum of Precious Metals in La Paz no longer appear to believe it's a fake. They've recently moved it into a publicly displayed collection of artifacts relating to the Tiwanaku civilization. It's generally believed that the most popular musical instrument in ancient Egypt was the sistrum, and yet it may not have been used as a musical instrument at all. This is a sistrum, and if its design is familiar, it's probably because you've seen it on hundreds of ancient Egyptian carvings and paintings without ever realizing it. According to legend, shaking a sistrum brought good fortune. If the Nile was flooding, you shook a sistrum at it. If your loved ones were sick, you shook a sistrum at them too. The instruments could be made from almost any material, including brass, clay, and wood, and made a loud, jangling sound when shaken. Based on the works left to us by the Egyptians, they appear to have been owned by women more commonly than by men. Curiously, examples of ancient Minoan sistrums have been found in and around the island of Crete, and appear to have many similarities with the Egyptian variants. Even more curiously, the clay versions of the instruments can't possibly have created a viable sound for music. So what purpose might they really have served? When it comes to the Sabu disc, scientists and experts would very much like you to accept their weak suggestion that it might be a candlestick holder, and ask no further questions about it. Unfortunately for them, people have many further questions. One of them is why the artifact, which is also sometimes known as the schist disc or the Saqqara disc, on account of the fact that it was found in Egypt's North Saqqara, is so singular in nature. If candlestick holders look like this and were common in Egyptian homes 5,000 years ago, why have we never found another one? Why is it made from obsidian, which is so unsuitable for that purpose? More pressingly, why is it shaped like a wheel, when as far as we know, the Egyptians hadn't discovered the wheel 5,000 years ago? Ever since it was first located in 1936, people have been struck by just how closely the disc resembles a steering wheel. We're not surprised that conspiracy theorists believe it to be evidence of spaceships or time travel. We just wish we had a better explanation. Sticking with the topic of ancient Egypt for a moment, it's hardly a secret that the Egyptians were big on funeral rites and rituals. That is, after all, why they built the pyramids. An important, rich, or respected person in Egypt would go to their final resting place accompanied by many items, including pottery, food, chariots, wine, and in some unfortunate cases, live animals. We can explain the purpose of most of the goods found in Egyptian tombs, but we've never been able to decipher the meaning of their funerary cones. Made from the muddy banks of the Nile itself, they're mostly found in the Theban necropolis, although examples from elsewhere have been noted and recorded. The name of the tomb's owner is stamped on the base of the cone, along with any titles they may hold. That tells us whose tomb we're in, but doesn't explain why the cones are there. They're always placed above the entrance to a tomb, on an outer wall. That also probably has some great significance which has been lost to time. If we asked you to think about a multi-tool, the first image that came to your mind would probably be the Swiss Army knife. You might even be looking at this device right now and thinking that it's a Swiss Army knife, but it isn't. This is a Roman multi-tool, and it's 1,800 years old. As for what's mysterious about it, despite its obvious practical uses, it's the only Roman artifact of its time ever discovered. Considering the popularity and ubiquity of Swiss Army knives today, why was this design never replicated anywhere else for centuries? You could even make an argument that this design is better than the modern Swiss Army knife, because as well as packing a fork, a spatula, a spike, a pick, and a knife, it also has a spoon attachment. You could use it to pick locks, eat your meals, or attack your enemies. The knife is currently the property of the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge, England, although it was originally found on the Mediterranean coast some 30 years ago. Walk up to a crowd of archaeologists and mention the topic of the Tartaria tablets, and you're likely to start an argument. They can all agree that they're old, but not on how old. They can also agree that they're significant, but not how significant. The tablets were found in Tartaria, Romania in 1961, at a site known for its collection of Neolithic artifacts. The tablets can't be carbon dated because of a poorly thought out conservation method that was applied to them after their discovery, and the geology of the area they were discovered in is mixed and uncertain. The oldest date postulated by a scientist for their creation is 5,300 BCE. Those who believe that they're more recent than that suggest 2,750 BCE as a more likely date. That makes the symbols on them contentious. If the tablets are over 7,000 years old, the primitive writing inscribed on them would be the oldest in the world. But even then, there's no agreement on whether the text is made up of Vinca symbols or Proto-Sumerian. Finding Viking artifacts in Europe isn't unusual. The Vikings raided almost everywhere on the continent, conquering and pillaging as they went, and they left plenty of archaeological evidence behind them on their travels. What is unusual, though, is finding a huge collection of more than 100 Viking swords all buried in the same place. That place is Ravala, just outside Tallinn, the capital city of Estonia. The H-shaped grips of the swords give them away as Viking in design, although curiously, every single one of them has been smashed to pieces. Probably on purpose. The find has been dated back to the 10th century, but nobody so far has been able to shed any light on why quite so many swords were left in the same place. It could indicate a mass grave, but there's a lack of skeletons to back that theory up with, and nor would such a practice be consistent with known Viking behavior elsewhere. Perhaps this was a platoon of Viking pacifists who decided to lay down their arms and go and live a quiet life in Estonia. Or perhaps it indicates that we still have a lot to learn about Viking customs and traditions. A historic artifact doesn't have to be thousands of years old in order to confuse or disturb scientists or archaeologists. We need only pay a visit to the medieval Crime Museum of Rothenburg, Germany for evidence of that. There you'll find some gruesome and brutal examples of medieval shame masks. Made of cold, hard metal, the masks came with exaggerated expressions intended to mock the wearer and would have been heavy and painful to wear. It's thought that they were used most commonly during the 17th and 18th centuries, although their presence in the museum reveals a confusion among experts about when the practice started and when it ended. Some records in Britain indicate that similar devices known as scold's bridles were in use during the 16th century. Intended as a punishment for a gossiping woman, the mask included an attachment that went inside the wearer's mouth and pushed down their tongue, preventing them from speaking. Similar devices were said to be used to punish and mock the lazy, the foolish, and those who were perceived to be poor musicians or tradespeople. Unfortunately, we have no way of knowing how much of this information comes from the imaginations of excitable Victorians and how much is based on real-life happenings. When you're looking through history books, you can usually identify the origin of an ancient soldier from their helmet. Roman helmets look very different from Viking helmets, and Viking helmets look very different from Anglo-Saxon helmets. You've probably never seen a helmet like this before, though. Known as a porcupine or pufferfish helmet, this is an ancient form of battle dress from Micronesia. It's exactly what it looks like: the skin of a pufferfish hardened, cut open, and fitted with a head guard and cheek patches for comfort and further protection. Typically, it would be paired with body armor made from coconut fibers. This was all that a warrior from Nauru, the Gilbert Islands, or Kiribati would need to go into battle with. The earliest examples of such an outfit was discovered in 1891, although sadly we have no information on when this strange practice started or when it came to an end. As you've probably guessed by now, neither do archaeologists or scientists. While brooches have never really gone out of fashion, it feels like we don't put as much effort into their design as we used to. Name a single brooch made this century as impressive or detailed as the brooch of Chesil Down, a relic of Anglo-Saxon England that dates back to the 6th century. Found in 1855, the heavily decorated brooch is made of silver gilt and Nilo, but would have served no grander a purpose than holding its owner's clothes together. Back then, nobody had yet invented the zipper or the button. There are signs of a southern Scandinavian influence on the brooch, although nobody has ever been able to decode the hidden meaning of the carvings. There's a confusing mixture of long-eared quadrupeds featured on the center of the brooch, and face masks all over the footplate and the side lobes. Images of scrolls appear elsewhere, and they're surrounded by triangles. Whoever designed this brooch was presumably trying to communicate something about either themselves or the brooch's owner. But without a means of translation, we can't even begin to guess at what they were trying to say. Seriously, what are those four-legged creatures with the long ears? Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and enjoy watching new videos on my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you soon!